Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Space Invaders TV. I'm your host, Rashawn, aka Looker, and I'm coming to you at midnight on March the 18th, 2022. And as y'all see in the title here, we're going to be talking about the Leandro versus the state of North Carolina. And before we go on, I want to start here. There's been a lot of parents that it's been an uproar when the mask mandates were in place. There have been an uproar over security of our schools, uproar on the teacher shortage, transportation, everything that you could think about. I have spoken about it. But this right here is what we really need to be fighting for. And we really have to get it out there. Because if you felt that your child's constitutional rights were violated because of mass, or should I say because of a mass mandate, then you really got to know, and you really should know, but obviously most didn't, that your child right to a sound basic education, their constitutional rights here in the state of North Carolina was actually violated. And we'll go on. I want to open it up right now here with the Superior Court Judge David Lee. This is from November the 10th, 2021. And he ordered the state of North Carolina to transfer $1.7 billion to fund the public school system in North Carolina. So this is about 2 minutes and 39 seconds. I'm gonna let it play so you can hear what Superior Court Judge David Lee had ruled on November the 10th, 2021. Let's take a listen. Give me a second, folks. All right, let's go ahead. All right, here we go.
Not about the judge. It is not about the legislature. It is not about the attorneys. About these children. What's going to be necessary for them to achieve the Leandro mandated education in this state. This case is about children who are from high poverty, low performing districts and areas of our state that aren't given a fair opportunity to get a sound basic education. Unfortunately, from the numbers I have seen, the sheer number of those students has increased dramatically and continues to do so. So in that sense, it's a runaway train. This court for 17 years has granted every reasonable deference to the legislature, executive branches of government, to put together and implement plans that simply has not occurred for whatever reason. Much has been spoken of about the exercise of legislative authority and the exercise of the court's authority to deal with these matters. But here, there's a positive gift on the part of, really, on the part of the people to ensure that this Leandro mandate is carried out. So that's the conclusion I have made, one of the conclusions that I have made in this order. I've also concluded that the repeated failure by the state is a constitutional violation that has to be remedied, if necessary, looking to the inherent power of the court, inherent power of the judicial branch to ensure and effectuate constitutional rights cannot be disputed.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that was, once again, that was Superior Court Judge David Lee. He ruled on November the 10th, 2021. He ruled that the state of North Carolina transfer $1.7 billion to fund the public school system. Just to give, we're gonna run down and give some context, because a lot of this information concerning the constitutional rights of the students of North Carolina being violated, you can find a total breakdown in the West Ed report. Okay, you go to WestEd, WESTED.org, and you will find a total breakdown for North Carolina. I mean, from the teachers to the financing, everything, early childhood development, like is a total breakdown. It's 300 pages. It's so much. It's so much that I'm not gonna go through it in this segment with you guys. I'm gonna just go through a few pages here and there of it. I'm not. It's just so much, and you will actually need to get to it and look at it yourself and take the time and break it down. Well, not break it down. Take the time to go through it step by step, like plan for plan. And not only West Ed, like they're a nonprofit organization, so this is what they do. They go around the country helping other school districts that have suffered these same problems, that have failed their students in the states. So they're out of California, and actually, Superior Court Judge David Lee actually assigned them to this case, and they didn't just make a report. They actually showed how to fix it. So when you looking through the West Ed report, West Ed report is actually giving you pretty much in a nutshell how the state of North Carolina has failed the students, at what rate they failed the students, and then they show, like, okay, this is what can be done. This is how you fix it. This is how much funding you're going to need to fix your situation. And this all kicked off back in the 90s, in 1994. And you have to give thanks to these 5 counties: Hope County, Halifax County, Vance County, Robeson County, and Cumberland County. Those counties, with the parents, the school districts, and the students, they got together and they filed this lawsuit against the state of North Carolina in 1994. And all of those counties I just named are classified as low wealth counties in the state. And they filed this case, which is called the Leandro case, against the state, because those counties found that the constitutional rights of the students in the state of North Carolina have been violated. In 1868, North Carolina put it on in their constitution, okay, that uh, every child will receive sound and basic education. Okay, uh, they've been violating that. They violated it, and okay, so North Carolina Constitution, Article 1, Section 15 states, education. The people have a right to the privilege of education, and it is the duty of the state to guard and maintain that. That is Article 1, Section 15 in North Carolina's Constitution. So the federal Constitution doesn't have anything concerning education. It is the states that put that in place. And there are many states that hadn't had that. And I have to give props where props is due. North Carolina was the first state to put that in their constitution in 1868. But they have failed the people. So you gotta imagine, so in 94, those 5 counties I named again, Vance County, Cumberland County, Hope County, Robeson County, and Halifax County, when they came together and filed the case against the state, okay, you gotta imagine when they came forth in 94, how long have they been fighting for for sound and basic education? How long have they been fighting for their rights before that? How many people they probably tried to talk to, and it just got to the point where they said, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and file. We're gonna go ahead and file this lawsuit. So you got to figure from that time, if we think back, okay. So if we go back to, what's to say there? I would say go back to like let's say 54, because they're saying it's been 28 years. Okay, let's just start right there. They're saying that it's been 28 years. They've been going back and forth because you had the state of North Carolina trying to get it dismissed. Like, they're not trying to follow their own. They're not trying to abide by their own constitution. It's in the state's constitution to the people have a right to the privilege of education, and it is the duty of the state to guard and maintain that. That is Article 1, Section 15 in the North Carolina Constitution. In North Carolina, has been trying to get it dismissed. They've been prolonging the case. Before Judge David Lee came aboard, it was Judge Manning before him, and he retired. Judge Manning retired. It was just going back and forth from that time, you know. But when Judge David Lee stepped in, you know, he said, no. You know, I feel like once I read what was going on when Judge Manning was in there, Superior Court Judge Manning, I felt like it was a real political thing, because it was certain, he just wasn't trying to do certain things. But when Judge David Lee stepped in, he said, oh no, we got to fix this. He is the one who recommended West Ed to come in and do the research and everything, and to help right these wrongs. And the state of North Carolina is consistently fighting till this day, not to obey the law that's on their books, you know. And it's a shame. We have people going to jail in this state for violating and breaking the laws. Okay, so we have the state breaking its own law that's on the books, and they're fighting tooth and nail not to right their wrongs. They owe the students and parents, and when you do the breakdown of everything, man, they saying 28 years. That's from 94 to present day. That's what they're saying. But I say, if we go back, if we just go back here, okay? You got a total. I'm gonna go on my notes here because I got a whole breakdown of the whole thing, how I explain this thing here, and I don't want to misstep anything. So we have a whole breakdown here, which when I did my math, and it's basic math and it's common knowledge, it's a total 68 years. The system, the school system, the state has failed the students. And then if you think about the impoverished students, low income areas, school districts in the state, that's a total of 100 years they have failed. This is no math that I'm making up. This is actual, because if we just go back from 1954, when Brown versus the Board of Education, if we go from 1954 to 94, that's 40 years. You add from 94 to present day, they saying it's 28 years, right? Because the only thing they've been counting is from 94 to present day. That's 28 years. But if we start back from Brown versus Board, 1954, till 94, that's 40 years. 40 years plus the 28 years, that's 68 years that they've actually failed the students in this state. Now, if we go back and you want to think, I hate to always go, well, I'm not even going to say that. Impoverished school districts, I don't care. There's white and blacks that's been in poverty. So if we go to the impoverished school districts in the state of North Carolina, then you gotta go figure from 1900, start back then, till 1954. Okay, so we looking at a total with the children that's been impoverished school districts. They've been lacking. They've been failed for 100 years. And I say that because I feel like, and I've said this a couple of weeks ago, if you've been following me, then I said this a week ago, and I talked about how when they deem segregated schools to be unjust, and they outlawed that thing. I feel like the powers that be from that time, they said, you know what, everybody's going to suffer, because there were people on both sides that did not want it. Blacks didn't want to be integrated. Whites didn't want it. They wanted to keep. It was folks on both sides who felt like the segregation did good. Now, I'm not here to say if it was or wasn't, because my personal thoughts on that, if we're going to be in the world together and we got to work together, then, you can't, we in this country together. It was going to be a point in time where you're going to work together and you have to do things together. So, but that's either here or there. The thing is that I felt once the powers that be, once they felt when the courts deemed that to be unlawful, to have segregated schools, I feel the powers that be said, you know what, we'll fix them. And everybody suffered from that point. Everybody suffered from that point. And so and I mean that, I mean really around the country, education suffered. But we talking about North Carolina right now. But the things that are going on in North Carolina right now are things that's going on all around the country. So let's move on here, and I want to. We're going to tap into the American Bar Association, where they're speaking about. They did a breakdown as well of the education system here in the state of North Carolina, and they also broke down and just let you know like how many states have it on their constitution concerning education, and they have it in almost in a type order. So let's go here. Let's see here. Before 1960, only 2 states embraced education as a fundamental right: Wyoming and North Carolina. They were the first 2. In 1960, Maryland added education to its Declaration of Rights. Since Brown versus Board of Education, education activists throughout the country had demanded access to a quality education for all children. These activists turned to state courts to encourage them to require states to provide more equitable access to a high-quality education. When state constitutions did contain an explicit requirement, they argued that such states must allocate resources so that all students receive the same high-quality education regardless of income or neighborhood. Their arguments often attacked financing schemes that relied on local property tax for the bulk of school resources. California started the ball rolling when its Supreme Court held in Serrano versus Priest, 1976, that education is a fundamental right under its constitutional court. Courts in Connecticut, Washington, and West Virginia soon followed suit. Mississippi, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Kentucky recognized the right to a quality education under their state constitution. In 1980, Rose versus Council for Better Education. In Kentucky, the courts defined 7 capabilities that an education system must provide to each child, which were subsequently adopted by courts in Alabama, Arkansas, Kansas, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and Texas. The movement picked up in the 90s, and then 12 more states jumped on board. In 93, Alabama, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Tennessee were added to the list, followed 1 year later by North Dakota, Virginia. By the end of the decade, Arkansas, Connecticut, Montana, New Jersey, and South Carolina and Vermont had joined the ranks. So you figuring, you really didn't have states. North Carolina jumped on. They were the first. They had it on their. They had it in their constitution in 1868. Okay. So you imagine these states, the rest of these other states, because still not all the states have it on their constitution. Just the states that you just heard me name off are the ones who, after activists made noise and everything, and going to state legislators, did it go on to those states' constitution. And it didn't happen until the 90s for a lot of the states. So for many years, a lot of states never even recognized education. It wasn't a thing. Nobody thought about it. So this is where I say, for 68 years, North Carolina alone, because they're saying now from 1994, when those counties I named in North Carolina, Vance, Halifax, Robeson County, Cumberland County, Hope County, When they came forth in 1994 to file this suit against the state, because those are deemed as low, what do they call them? Low wealth counties. They weren't getting their just, as far as the education. Their constitutional rights were violated when they came forth in 1994. They're claiming from 94 to now is 28 years. Then I say, if you count from 54 to 94, that's 40 years. Plus 28 years is 68 years that the students in the state of North Carolina, your rights have been violated. Your constitutional right has been violated. And then if we go back further, before 1954 Brown versus Board of Ed, if we go back further, then that's 54 years from 1900 to 1954. You had low income or impoverished areas in the state not getting the adequate resources and everything that they needed. So that's 100 years. So that's all I'm saying, folks. So if people were outraged about the mask mandates, transportation, the lack of teachers and everything that's going on in your counties, all that is a reflection, because a lot of these commissioners and everything, they know about that Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina. And if they don't know, now they know. But many of them do know. So just like when I think back about how when I spoke on the students of Goldsboro High School down in Goldsboro, Goldsboro Historical High School, let's say that, because that high school is a historic high school, okay? When I think about that high school and I think about how they done that high school and how they let that high school just go bad, that's just an example of, it's like, hey, big brother, the state. They say, hey, well, the state's not doing anything. The state is not even owning up to its own constitution. They're fighting the people back against a constitution, their constitutional rights. So why should we? And the people don't know about that. Because see, all the fight and all the things that I've talked about up to that point, this right here is the hierarchy. Your constitutional right has been violated. So if you went to school in the state of North Carolina in the 90s, high school, your rights have been violated. If you went to the school anywhere in the 1900s, your rights, your constitutional rights in the state of North Carolina have been violated. The math that I broke down to you and the years that I broke down to you ain't nothing that I come with off the top of my head. It's all common sense when we think about it. Okay? So, and we all adults here, so it's just common sense thoughts. This ain't nothing that I'm making up. We got to think about it. The problems don't start. The problem didn't start when those 5 counties in North Carolina went and filed the suit in 94. The problem didn't start in 94. The problem started before that. It was going on before that. They just got to the point where I guess the local resources, the folks on the local level couldn't do anything for them. They start hitting the ceiling, so they had to just break the glass on the ceiling and go further. The problem never starts when you say something. That's with anything. The problem is already there. It's just anytime there's a problem, how could we say this? Anytime there's a problem, it's never when you say something. It starts as a problem, and sometimes you it bubbles, it boils, and then it starts to boil over. Then you say something. Most cases that's how it goes. So once again, like I said, those 5 counties, it got to a point that they just said, hey, those 5 counties in North Carolina, they said, hey, this is it. Enough is enough. We're going to file this lawsuit against the state. They're violating our constitutional rights. They are to provide every student, no matter what your ethnic race group is, no matter what your financial status is, they are to offer sound and basic education to every student in the state. That is their constitution. All right, and that's just it. So let's go here to. I'm gonna pull up. I'm trying to pull it up now, folks. The Leandro, or the West Ed report. I'm pulling that up right now, and I'm not, like I said, it is extensive. It's 300 pages, so I can't go through. It's just so much. So I'm just gonna give you just a breakdown. Like when you go to it, it's West Ed, WESTED.org. It's 300 pages. Is It's a lot of extensive information. A lot of information, and if you really want to know and really want to educate yourself on what's really going on, you will want to get it. It's free. You just go online and pull it up, download it, and read it from your phone, whatever, and educate yourself. Take your time to see what's going on and the breakdown of everything. They give a total breakdown. I'm gonna give you. I'm trying to get to the background where they say here. Let's get here. All right, the background. Here's the introduction, right? And they're saying here. This is the West Ed report again. Throughout every region of North Carolina, leaders of organizations in all fields, business, education, government, community, faith-based, and others, agree that the future prosperity and well-being of state citizens require successful educating of all its children. That means effectively supporting children of every race, ethnicity, economic level, family background, and location, from the most rural to the most urban. However, North Carolina's current education system fails to meet the educational needs of many of its children, and thereby fails to provide for the future success of these individuals, their communities, and the state. The Supreme Court of North Carolina decision in Leandro versus the state of North Carolina, 97, Leandro affirmed that the state has a constitutional responsibility to provide every student with an equal opportunity for a sound basic education, and the state was failing to meet that responsibility. As documented in this action plan, the challenges of meeting these responsibilities have increased since the original decision, and the state needs to significantly increase its commitment and effort to provide for the education of every student. To do so, the state will need to strategically improve and transform multiple components of the education system, from ensuring an adequate supply of qualified teachers and principals to improving curriculum, instruction, and assessment, to more effectively address the needs of at-risk students and the persistent gaps in achievement among groups of students. A deep, ongoing commitment and wise investment are vital to building and maintaining. I missed my place. Hold on. I was going too fast and I went past my pace. Okay. Deep, ongoing commitment and wise investment are vital to building and maintaining the required capacity at the school district, regional, and state levels. The future of state hangs in the balance. All right. The action plan. This action plan provides recommendation for actions that will advance the state's effort to achieve compliance with the Leandro decision. It identifies the highest leverage and most critical action that the state needs to take immediately and over the next 6 years and beyond to transform the education system and provide the necessary foundational opportunities for all students. So the state has just dropped the ball, and again, you can't allow, what we've been seeing is that, so when COVID kicked in, just in this state alone and around the country, period, but we just talking about North Carolina now, but do understand wherever you at in the country, this kind of resonates with the rest of the country too, and what we see for many years in the education system around the country. Okay, so let's get understanding these issues with North Carolina is having with teacher shortages and everything, funding. None of this happened just during COVID. This had been going on. They get $10 billion. They have a $10 billion budget. It's a big budget for the state for education. They're not using it the way they're supposed to be using it. And then what happens is, like I said earlier, it's like the state is the big brother. So the counties are the little brothers. So then you got the counties and things, they're not doing, so they're feeling like, hey, well, the state not doing what they're supposed to do, so why should we? We give what we want and we do it how we want. But some are doing it in a discriminatory way. Some of the counties, because you see the funding one thing you have to understand, like the county funding and things of that nature, that's coming from the local tax dollars and everything. So again, with the local tax dollars in the said county, they put in those when it comes to the public education in those counties. The tax dollars that they're getting to fund the public education in counties around the state, you can tell and you can see that they're giving the money to the ones that they want to give it to. But see, if the state of North Carolina was doing like they supposed to do, that wouldn't happen. They would check that, because they would say, hey, well, we giving you X amount of money, period. Because the state's giving up a larger amount to the counties around the state. Okay, so if the state was doing what they were supposed to do, then we wouldn't have the problems we have within the counties. We wouldn't have problems with teachers, because they would pay them. The state would allocate the money like they should to help support that. So everything that I've talked about, all the issues that we see that's been going on, these things have been going on a total of 100 years. So you got generations that have been failed in this state. Generations. I did the math from 1900. From the 1900s up until present day. Okay? Generations have been failed. So you look at it as you've been failed, your child's been failed, your child's been failed, you've been failed, your parents been failed, your grandparents been failed. But we have these institutions in this state of North Carolina. You have some of the best institutions. How is this going? How is this even possible? It doesn't even add up. And that's one of the things that that's been talked about in different publications concerning the West Ed report, concerning the constitutional rights being violated by a student's constitutional rights in this state of North Carolina being violated. That's been the other thing is like, so this has been an off balance system. How, the students are not even prepared for college. How when they're above average, and if you've been following me, you know that I said earlier on, I've been saying it off and on. I said, how is it that we have these colleges here? You have you have the top institutions in the country, some of the top institutions in this country, college institutions in this country, in this state, right here. But how is the education? How is the public education system? It don't balance out. It don't match. It don't match. So you have a lot of local publications that have done articles, and they spoke the same thing that I've spoken, and it doesn't even make any sense. So we have all these different programs like like Guilford County. You have the innovative. What is that this lady's going to? Contreras, the innovative project, whatever. You have bullcrap programs like that. You wouldn't need that if the state was doing what they're supposed to do. You understand what I'm saying? You get all of these spin-off type of programs. Then you have these magnet schools. What? So let's go back to that. You see, I just did a story on a charter school out in Raleigh last week, right? So let's think about it. What do we have these magnet and charter schools for? And they under the same guideline that they're under the same state guidelines as public schools, traditional public schools in this state. What is their purpose? What is their purpose? Because the whole curriculum is trash. Trash. They have yet to fix it. They're not trying to. It seems like they keep fighting against righting their wrongs with a constitution, violating the people's constitution, man. You got 100 years of the people's constitutional rights being violated concerning education, public education in this state. Unreal. And people are going mad about mask mandate, saying that their constitutional rights, their child's rights. No, your child's educational rights have been violated for 100 freaking years. This is not a fluke. You can go look up the state of North Carolina. I just read everything. I just broke it down to you. The whole today we got parents arguing about the schedule. They're in an uproar. Well, if you in an uproar over a schedule, then what you gonna feel like now? Because obviously no one knew about the Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina. Nobody knew about that. That's been 28 years old. That case is 28 years old today. This year, 28 years. Obviously nobody knew about that, but he arguing about because your child has to get additional take additional classes, but your child's education has been violated, period. And if you went to school, public school, here your education has been violated. Your parents' education has been violated. Your grandparents' education has been violated. You have four generations of education being violated. And you are arguing about what? See, this is just the build-up right here. To this point right here, when I'm letting you know everything that I spoke about education, this right here makes it all make sense for you. Your rights has been violated in the public education system here in the state. So then the trickle down effect, you have these commissioners, you have these superintendents, you have all these different people. They know about that. They know, they heard about it. They know about that case, and that's why they've been playing the games that they play with not doing right by the schools. They're getting funding, they don't spend it. The counties get funding, from local tax dollars. They spend it how they want to spend it and playing games. Prime example, that's why Guilford County, they got schools 50 plus years old, dire need. Yeah, the commissioners walking around, and what are you still walking around the schools for, sirs? Like these schools, they're 50 years old. What are you still walking around the schools for, sir? You can't fix them. You don't have a hard hat and tools to go. You don't have nothing. Go call the folks that could do the job. You walking around. You guys been walking around for years. The state has been walking over people for 100 years. Walking over the people. It don't matter if you was black or white. That's not even a point no more. Everybody has been failed. And people are just going at the wrong things. And I've been trying to figure out when people was gonna, and I've been trying to talk and give everyone the education and the knowledge, and just trying to like, hey man, this is what's going on. But I'm just one man. I can't go at this thing alone. Only thing I can do is stand next to the ones who are doing it and help push, But and at the same time, reach back and keep giving the information and hoping that more people come on, and then we can make a big stand. Because at the point right now, what's going on right now is this needs to be a public outcry for something to move. It has to be. I have to give a major shout out to Lynn Edwards and the League of Women Voters. They actually I guess it aired on Wilmington stations on the 16th, on March the 16th, 2022. They had the documentary concerning the Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina. They did a documentary. The documentary aired on the Wilmington stations, WRAL stations. I didn't know. I just wonder why it didn't like statewide. Why it didn't just air statewide for the whole entire state here? Because I would love to have seen it. The documentary concerning the Leandro case and them going around different counties and things of that nature. I would have loved to see that, and I would have loved to hear some of the responses from maybe the people that they've tried to talk to and things of that could have helped move some things along. But yeah, the state has truly failed, and don't let them try to make you think that since COVID this thing has got we've lost all these teachers since COVID. No. When you read the West Ed breakdown, wested.org, WESTED.org, when you read that report, and like I said, it's just not only a report. They give pretty much they give the way out. They show them how it can be fixed. They don't just say, hey, this is where they went wrong. This is what the state did wrong. This is how they screwing up these dollars and this. No. They're saying this is how you went wrong. This is how you can fix it. It all comes back to the money at the end of the day. Spend the money. You have to spend money to make things happen. And that's just all what it is. But like I said, I just go back to the point, and I spoke about that before, and I just go back to the point that once segregation was deemed unjust, unlawful, and the court said, nah, we can't have that. I just feel that the powers that be at that time, when it became a real political thing, and I feel like they said, okay, like I said, you had parties on both sides, blacks and whites, that felt like integrating was the wrong thing, like that wasn't good. So I just feel like the powers that be said, at the end of the day, the powers that be that held the most power at that time said, hey, you know what? Everybody's gonna suffer now. This is what y'all wanted? Okay, yeah, that's okay. We know what the court's saying. We know what the court's saying, but we still got the power. We still got the juice. So we're gonna make those. Everyone's gonna suffer. Yeah, everyone. You wanted this, you gonna suffer. And I think from that point on, the school systems, not just for North Carolina, because only thing when I look at the breakdown for when I look at it for North Carolina, it just that's like putting a microscope on the entire education system around the country. Because you look at it and you would think, now we have a federal government that talks on education, and they talk about, yeah, you know, we offer education and being number one. The federal government would say this. You have those those running for president, those presidents. You have, uh, all the executive government. You'll hear them say this, but it's like you don't have that on the Constitution. It's not in the federal Constitution. The states had to put it on their Constitution, put it in their Constitution. The federal government doesn't have that in their Constitution. So it's like, well, maybe we should have started there, and then maybe it could have been a lot different for the entire country. So once again, like I say, what's going on in North Carolina, for all of these years, 100 years, okay, and I'm stand on that 100 years, because when you do the breakdown, that's what it is. This Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina has been going on for 28 years. But like I said, the problem didn't just start then in '94. The problem started before '94. Okay, the the problem started before that. Okay, in 1954, and then like then before that, you got to add in. Then if you want to add in the low income, impoverished school districts, add another 50 years to that after 1954. Okay, before. Okay, starting at 1900. So that's how I did my math on it. A problem don't just start when someone brings it to the forefront. It's been brewing, and when you have problems, you have people trying to talk it out. You have people trying to talk it out, even before it gets too bad, and then even when it's at its worst, he's still trying to talk it out, and it may just not be working. The problem ain't fixed till it's solved. And this problem has not been solved, and it's still not trying. They still been fighting it. Okay. And you got to give some thanks to Superior Court Judge of North Carolina, David Lee, because he put the West Ed. He appointed them over the case and had them go do the research and put together a report and break down and how to fix this thing. Now, the state of North Carolina has that report. They have the report, and they still haven't been trying to do anything. And it's a shame. It's a shame. So let's go here. The North Carolina context, the background, the historic context of public education in North Carolina. This is still from the West Ed report. North Carolina efforts to provide a sound-based education for every child date back to 1868 state constitution that requires the General Assembly to provide a general and uniform system of public education whereon tuition shall be free of charge to all the children of the state, and establish that a superintendent of public education be elected by the people for a 4-year term. Etheridge, 1993. Building this system gained momentum in the early 20th century, led by Governor Charles B. Aycock and Superintendent James Y. Joyner, whose efforts resulted in the building of 3,000 schools throughout the state and the enactment of the 1913 compulsory Attendance Act that require all children from ages 9 through 12 to attend at least 4 months of school each year. Hold on here. During the early decades of the 20th century, North Carolina's commitment to public education was evident by increasing allocation of state funding to education, creating teacher training institutions for both white and black educators, establishing the North Carolina State Board of Education, under which a board of examiners set requirements for teacher certification, lengthening the school year, establishing vocational and agricultural education programs, and more. The commitment was affirmed by the State Machinery Act of 1931 as the state sought to restore its system of public education. After the damage caused by the Great Depression, the School Machinery Act, which was refined in 1933, established most of the basic elements that continue to govern North Carolina public school law today. As was true throughout the nation, the 1954 Supreme Court ruling in Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Elementary and Secondary School Act together had a major impact on public education in North Carolina, leading to racial integration. Racial integration of the schools and a major increase in federal involvement and funding for improving schools. The 1960s, 1970s also witnessed in North Carolina the advent of universal kindergarten, the 180-day school year, regional education supporting agencies statewide testing, the requirements to provide appropriate educational opportunities for students with disabilities, the establishment of the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, and expansion of the UNC system, and many other policies and programs that formed a strong foundation for continued progress of the state system of public education. I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to kind of wrap it up from here, right? What I've noticed, and I've talked about it, is the exploitation in this state of the low income at this point. It's been like a exploitation because like these counties, they're getting funding for what they deem as low income, impoverished areas, however they want to classify it, right? They're getting funding for it, and they're not doing right. They're not helping to elevate those schools. And that, once again, is a domino effect. The big brother is the state. If big brother ain't doing right, then everybody under them ain't gonna do right. So if they know big brother ain't paying and doing and funding like he should, and it's on the Constitution, then these counties gonna feel like, well, wow, why should we do it? Why should we do anything? Why should we put that money? Why should we spend all of that money? Hey, they're not giving us no money like they supposed to. They don't care. Hey, they still trying to fight. They're still trying to fight the people on a sound basic education that they put into the Constitution in 1868. They ain't even trying to follow that. So why should we give up anything? And that's where you see, ladies and gentlemen, the morals of a person and of people in those positions. Because even if the state's doing wrong, the county should inform the people that you reside in and say, hey, look, hey, we trying to get this and they doing this, but we gonna do all we can for our people in our county, because we stand on the education and we believe and we want our students in our counties to succeed. They don't have that. You know, there's a lot of people that don't have morals. They, they don't stand on no principles. You know, a lot of people, as I spoke about, a lot of people they sit in these county seats for their own personal gain. So we have board members, school board members. As I've been said, there are jokes. Okay, and shame on you, board members from any board in this state, in this country. If you know that your state is one of the states that I named off earlier that has it in their constitution, because let's be clear, if a state don't have it in their constitution, you can't hold them. Now, morally, and everything, and like you can be like, wow, why wouldn't you put that in your constitution, in your state's constitution? But if they don't have it on there, you can't really, you know. But if your state have it in their constitution to provide sound and basic education, and if they're not doing it, and then you got the board of education in your county or whatever, and they're not even doing nothing, that's bad. Shame on you. Shame on you for taking the same stance that the people are a lot of people are being blindsided and don't even know that this is going on. This is a lot of you first time hearing that your constitution, if you was born and raised in the state of North Carolina, your constitutional rights have been violated concerning education. They've been violated and you didn't even know it. So if you were in school in the 90s, definitely you didn't even know. You didn't even know that the fight, what was going on. You didn't even know that you had those 5 counties, Vance, Robeson, Hoke, Halifax. You didn't even know, in Cumberland counties, you didn't even know that those folks stepped up and they laid it down, and they went and filed a suit. They stood for the whole state. Anyone in any what they classified as low wealth counties, any low wealth county in the state of North Carolina, those 5 counties were low wealth counties. They stood for all. They stood for all. And if you was in school in the 90s, you ain't even know what was going on. That your constitutional rights were violated. Your mama's constitutional rights been violated. Yes, if you got kids in school right now, your kids' constitutional rights is being violated. Your grandparents' constitutional rights was violated concerning education. Once again, like I said, it don't matter what your race is. If you went to school in this state, your constitutional rights was violated. So if you think your school was better than the next person's school across the city, the joke was on you concerning the state, and they still pushing back. Even with a West Ed report, even with the judge having that company come in to West Ed, like I said, they're a company, nonprofit, based out of California. This is what they do. They go around the country and they help states that are failing their students in public education. They help them compile data and everything, get everything together and show them where their faults are, how they can fix them. This is what they do. Okay, and it's just a sad thing, and it's alarming. It's very alarming. It's very alarming to know that this state is dodging its own constitutional laws. It's alarming when you hear those same people, as I spoke about last week, talk about education and how important it is, but they stunting our children's educational growth. The state of North Carolina, Article 1, once again, Section 15, education. The people have a right to the privilege of education, and it is the duty of the state to guard and maintain that right. What's the problem with North Carolina Board of Education? What's the problem? How can we sit up here, or the Department of Instruction, how can we sit up here and continuously keep talking about education and keep talking about all these different programs? How do we keep talking about these things, but you are violating and have violated students' right? How? It's all a freaking joke, man. And how do you lock people up for violating your state laws every day? You lock people up for violating your state laws, but you have the state, you've been violating and you have failed students for years, for decades. You have been failing the students of North Carolina. But meanwhile, we champion these big universities here. Yeah, meanwhile, the same students owe a lot of money to these colleges, for the education. They paid a lot of the students that stayed in state and went to the universities here in the state. You got great universities here in the state of North Carolina, and you have students that'll stay home. Yeah, the same students that you failed in public education will go to these universities and haven't even and according to the West Ed report, North Carolina, you have failed the students. They're not even at the average. They're not even at the national average. What the are y'all doing? How to make it make sense, man? That is a disgrace. You have robbed the people. You have robbed the people of a sound education, basic education. Rob the people. But we go here and we have these magnet and charter schools, which you see me laughing right now. I'm like, well, that's a big ass joke. Because in this state anyway, it's a big ass joke. Because if the states has been below the guidelines, how you set a guideline for a charter and a magnet school? What the fuck is their purpose? What if you if the state is failing the public education system, if they're failing their own public education system, how the hell are you putting in place? How are you overseeing charter and magnet schools then? That just explains everything to me about the charter school in Raleigh. Forget the name. What was it? Charlight, something like that. I talked about it last week. It's late. My brain ain't working right. But y'all know, y'all can look into my archives. That explains everything. How that school how that man, his family, the McQueens, how they just ran that school for years and gained all that money. And he had a management company that managed the charter school, and he gained $3 million in funding from his management company. From the school to his management company. Yeah, that explains everything. Like, how, man? Like, come on, man. First and foremost, I would think you don't need no magnet schools in this state. You need to just focus solely on your public education, your traditional public schools. You don't need no secondary public schools. You need to focus on your traditional public schools and getting them right. That's what I would say. You need to just get that right. How can we manage something else? And how can you manage another branch of education when you're not even managing and you've been failing your first branch for 100 years? For 100 years, you've been failing your school system. Yeah, you've been failing it for 100 years. But that's my time, folks. I just want to talk about that. I wanted to get that out because everything that I've talked about over the last year concerning the education system around this state, around this country, what's going on in North Carolina, that just puts that just puts a big scope on the entire country. That just gives you the whole outlier of the entire country when it comes to the education. Like the same, what's going on here? It's like, okay, now I understand what's going on around the country. You know, with a lot of these school districts and things of that nature. If the state is not keeping up and not following through, that's if they have education within their state's constitution. If they don't, then they're not gonna care, you know. But if they do have the education, public education in their constitution, whatever says state, and if their state is having a problem, then you may, if your state is having a problem and you're hearing about major education flaws all around your state, then look into your state constitution and see if your state is one of the states I named that has education in its constitution and provides, and it said that will provide a sound and free education to all in their state. However it may be worded. Just see if your state offered that. Then if their state offered that, just go back and see what's going on. Because it starts right there then. Because like I said, even in the state of North Carolina and in the county I'm in, is what I'm seeing now in all the counties around it. Just now I know if the big brother ain't doing right, then the rest of them ain't gonna do right neither. They're gonna say, what the heck, these people, they don't know. Because if everybody did know about the Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina and how your constitutional rights as a student was being violated in public education, I think it would have been a lot of protests going on. And I hope from this point now, and I hope you all pass this video around, because this is real and it is not fake. And you can look it up yourself, as every time I tell you about anything that I speak about, I give you the publications or where I've got it from. So once again, you go to wested, WESTED.org, and a sound basic education for all is what it'll read. And you go ahead and you download that 300 page and you take some time and you read that. You know, read through that and look up the state constitution for yourself. As I said, it was Article 1, Section 15. The state of North Carolina is said to provide a sound and free basic education to all students in the state. No matter your nationality, creed, color, don't matter. Everybody. They have failed the people. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. I just wanted to share that. And this probably be the last time I talk anything else about the education, because that right there is the mic drop. See, this was the build up to everything I talked about with education. And see, everything else ain't even worth what. If you're marching for anything else is uncivilized concerning education. Because the one thing you gotta march for is march for this Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina, the constitutional rights being violated. That's where we start right there. Because once the state gets in line, then these counties and everything else will fall in line. Because see, then the state will, it'll be, the big brother will be definitely watching. You know, they'll be definitely, you know, because if the state has it in their constitution, then that means that every county has to fall in line. And if they don't fall in line, it's going to be a problem. And then guess what'll happen? The state will come in and snatch it, because they say what? They offer a sound, basic, free education for all. That's through the public school system. Okay, so that's it right there, and that's been the problem. If your county has been one of the counties, and I may have spoke about a school in your county in the state of North Carolina, that's what's going on. And as I said, you got a lot of people that sit in these seats, these commissioners. You got people that bounce around in these local level seats. They just bounce around different offices. They've been knowing what's going on. They just playing the game. These people are in there for their own game. Okay? And now we see, you know, what's really going on. So that's it, folks. That's the mic drop right there. Ain't it's nothing else to be. There's nothing else to say. If nobody is trying to form up and make noise about that, that's the constitutional right being violated. And once again, I want to give a major shout out to West Ed Report. I want to give a thank you to Superior Court Judge David Lee, because if he wouldn't have gotten these folks to put this report together, the West Ed Report, the state will constantly keep pushing back, even though they push it back now. But I think that this Superior Court Judge David Lee, he's not, as I let you listen early on in the video, he's not with it. He know it has to be fixed. Like, that's the Constitution, and any judges, they gonna go by the law. That's a law. So it's got to be rectified. Ain't no other way. This has been going on and dragged on for too many years. From 94 to present day, that's 28 years that they've been dragging the case. Like, just dragging the case. It been brought forward in 94. Got pushed back, and then 97 is when they actually, started advancing on it, and then it was just consistent pushback since then. But as I said, it didn't start when the people in those 5 counties went and filed the lawsuit against the state of North Carolina. The problem had already been. It had already been. So you think about it again. How many students before 94 in the state of North Carolina had been failed before 94? How many students had been failed? Okay, so just think about that for a second. Think about that when you're reading over that West Ed Report. Think about that when you go and fact check me and look up the state's constitution concerning education. Think about how many students had been failed. Yeah, I'm upset. I have a child in this education system, and knowing that my child is being failed burns me up. But that's why, as parents, we have to make sure that you are teaching your child. Don't let your work and everything get take too much control over everything. Make sure that you giving your child knowledge. Make sure you don't just rely on a public education or whatever, however, private education. Don't just rely on that. Make sure that you are helping to educate your child as you should, because at the end of the day, you have to remember that's your child. So make sure that you're educating your child, because today, all the things, when I think about history, they're trying to take, just trying to take history out of school, and they've taken history out of school, and, and it's like, wow, so we know it's a lot of lies, right? So we don't want to tell that no more, huh? So we just ain't gonna tell nothing. It's just so much today, but not to go at anyone with gender issues or the LGBTQ, but we want to present that in the schools, but we're not going to talk about history. We want to make sure that we're making that group of people feel, but we're not going to talk about history. Doesn't make sense, you know, and that's not nothing to take away from anybody in the LGBTQ community. That's just trying to get an understanding here. So we're gonna bring this in, but we're gonna take this out. Like that that just doesn't even make any sense to me. But that's the world we live in today. But that's my time, folks. This is Space Invaders TV. I thank y'all. Just make sure that y'all share this. Share this. This is knowledge. This is knowledge that a lot of folks didn't know. A lot of folks didn't know. You just think about this. If you've been to school here in the state of North Carolina, definitely if you was in school between 94, if you was in school in the 90s, you've been failed. Okay, your constitutional rights have been violated in this state. Okay, concerning public education. Okay, I don't care what your nationality, creed, if you're black or white, you've been failed. Okay, and just think about that. Your moms. If your moms went to school in the state, your grandmoms went to school in the state, aunties, uncles, like you got generations that have been failed. If that don't alarm you, and everybody talk about their rights, and I know my rights and these my rights. No, they violated your educational rights in this state. Freak a mask mandate. So we got the media talking all about mask mandates, but nobody talk and wants to bring up the Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina concerning public education. But we cheer at ball games and the colleges here. I watch people argue in parking lots about college ball games. But the public education system has been failing the people. Make it make sense, man.